G'day there, Hivers. Today's lunchtime live stream, I'll just put a date stamp on it. It is the 13th of August, 2025. I've been thinking a lot about people who are trying to build up their practice in order to be able to sell it. And there's a few things I've noticed, so I just thought I'd share a few things about how do you actually value your practice. And if you are planning on selling your practice at some stage in the future, what are the things that you need to be in place to actually maximize the value? And even if you don't have that particular plan in place at the moment, what would you have to do to make sure that your practice was saleable, even if you decide that you want to keep it? Because ideally, I mean, when we're working with practice owners at the Hive, we'd like to think that you could build a practice that you don't necessarily want to sell, but it would be really attractive for somebody to come and buy, and not just a new grad who's thinking, well, instead of having a job, I'll just get a bit of a leg up by getting some equipment. No, I'm talking about the kind of practice where even, someone like me as an investor might be able to come in and go, oh, that's actually a really attractive proposition. Now, it's also been sparked. Let me just share my screen here for a moment. It's also been sparked by the fact that I've seen quite a few of these kinds of ads. These are just two screen grabs, one from the Physiotherapy Association, one from the Podiatry Association. And I'm not, providing any confidential information here, but what I notice as I look into these, well, not necessarily these specific ads or every single one of these, but it just as a general trend, there are practices that they're saying, this practice is worth X dollars, and you have a look at it and there's not really any value that I can see. So I just want to explain why I think that is. And by the way, I'm running a webinar where I'm going to actually take you through valuing your practice at a much deeper level next week. If you want to register for that webinar, it's hivepractice.com/webinar. And during that time, we'll go into this at a much deeper level, and we will look at templates that you can use to actually start playing around with the valuation and getting a bit of a plan together to increase the value. Anyway, that's hivepractice.com/webinar. But I just noticed an ad that had something like this, and I've changed it so that it's a little bit more generic, so it's not actually specific, but it gives you the general vibe of what these guys were trying to sell. So it's saying a great opportunity for a practitioner to take on their own first practice, or perhaps an existing owner seeking another location. Just a red flag in that immediate suggestion. I know this is a marketing pitch, and yes, if I own this place, I might pitch it like that. But if you are an owner of an existing practice that has 2 rooms or maybe even 3 rooms, my suggestion to you is that there'll be a lot more headspace in adding an extra 2 rooms somewhere else than expanding and adding 3, 4, 5 extra rooms in one location. Just an observation that I've noticed with a lot of people who think, oh, look, we can just get, one over here and one over here. Maybe we can operate out of a GP clinic here. And it's just so much going on. Anyway, suited to a working practitioner buyer. So if your practice is like this, that's exactly right. It's suited to a working practitioner. And so if your practice is like this, you just need to be aware that your pool of potential buyers is someone really looking to run their own job rather than have a job being employed by somebody else, whether it's the Department of Health or whether it's another bigger private practice. So this is kind of what your offer is. And so your pool of buyers is obviously a lot narrower. Now, there's a couple of things here. It says, clinic has the potential to grow depending on how you would like to set up the clinic or to suit your lifestyle. It says it's billing between 150 and 200K. But just remember, it's saying here also that there are 2 rooms. So the real estate itself is underutilized for that level of billing at the moment. So I would say, oh yeah, maybe there's growth opportunity within this. Now, the advertised profit on this was $80,000. So let's just have a little think about, okay, profit $80,000. So what are they talking about? 150 to 2. Well, let's just imagine they're being a little bit generous and that we're down. Let's just say it's 160. And that's the total turnover. So if you're saying 80,000 profit, that's a 50% profit. No wonder what are the expenses in this particular practice that come out of that, let's say, $160,000 in terms of rent, in terms of all of the equipment and insurance and all the other expenses that you have to pay, attribution to somebody for offsite, some kind of support, or whether you're paying somebody if it's in another room, contribution to reception, whatever it is. But I know there's going to be expenses in there. And my guess is that they're saying is that all of that comes to $80,000. And then there's $80,000 left over for the owner. Now, if you're working, then that's pretty much your salary, right? So I would say that I'd be very skeptical that there is any profit from the point of view of what I would call profit. And that is what is left over after all the expenses have been paid, plus, if it's a sole operator, a market salary has been paid to that person, because essentially, if I was going to buy this business, I would actually have to employ somebody to do that work. And chances are I'd be paying them at least $80,000. So it might not be any return. So just a quick check in. If you see something like this and you're tempted to go, oh yeah, it's got $80,000 profit. Remember, you could go and work for somebody else. And as a practitioner, a really good practice, you might be earning, as an experienced practitioner, 150, maybe more as your salary. So what is the value of a practice like this? Very hard to determine because it's hard to say who could be a buyer. But I just want you to contrast this with another one that I saw at a similar time. Now, this one said, look, the principal is only treating 3 half days. Now, that's really important because as an investor, if I wanted to go in there, I go, oh, okay, so looks like if it's got 3 full-time employed podiatrists, if we take out the principal, then it's not going to be the end of the world for that practice. We may be able to employ a 4th practitioner full-time. Had an allied health assistant and 2 support team. Now, it said the premises actually had 6 treatment rooms. So I'm looking at that and thinking, oh, that's interesting. They've only got 3 full-time employee practitioners and a principal. So that's 4 rooms. And then we've got an allied health assistant. Potentially that's 5 rooms if the allied health assistant's working in their own room. But we've still got an extra room. So I would think, yeah, there's an opportunity to either add another allied health assistant or to add another practitioner into this. So there's actually room for growth within their current real estate. They've got some other stuff like the milling room. They've got a team rec room. They've got a reception. This is starting to look a little bit like a proper business. And when I start to look at the numbers, and I'm looking at this, turnover 1.2, profit 20. So, 200. And I'm thinking, well, it seems to me like that those numbers actually add up. I still think we could probably improve profit because I'm aiming to get to a 20%, but this is actually looking like a much better value proposition for a practice like this. Whereas the previous practice, you might just be selling it for the cost, what you could get for the chairs and the equipment, and there may be a bit of negotiation of goodwill to pay a bit above that for the list and for the convenience of not having to go and set everything up yourself, but there's not a lot of value. Whereas what we might be looking at here is maybe even 3, if it was a great team as well, maybe even 4. So you might be looking at somewhere between $500,000 to $800,000 for this practice, depending on the specifics of how the numbers. And again, when you're thinking about that magic valuation formula, it is tricky because you do have to get into this negotiation phase and you do have to look at a lot of the variables. And again, that's what I will do when we run that webinars. We'll actually drill down into the value drivers a little bit more. But essentially, if you have to sell, all you're going to be able to get for that practice is the price that somebody is willing to pay at that particular time. So that's why I think it's always important that you have a saleable practice at any particular time. I'd like you to think about this, though, is that you may decide that your desired outcome is not to build this big thing that you can exit. I've actually coached a couple of practitioners who thought, you know what, I want to build a bigger business that leverages through team members and through systems. And after looking at that, they decided that they were actually a high performer. And what I mean by that is that they were actually at the top of their game, and they could bill a lot because they were very, very good at what they did, and they could charge appropriately to match the value, the very high value of what they were actually delivering to their patients. And so that practitioner decided, you know what my strategy is going to be is that we'll run this as a lean practice, not too much support required. I'm going to continue to do what I do, and I'm going to lean into being the best at doing that, provide a lot of high value treatments. And my strategy is going to be a little bit more like the Superbike version of a business. And my wealth creation strategy is not going to be exit from the business. It's actually going to be investing somewhere else. It doesn't matter what it was, it's just somewhere else outside the practice. So they bill a big amount, they run it very lean, and they invest somewhere else. Now that's the one strategy, and that was what they decided is their desired outcome. And at the end of that, even though their plan is to generate a lot of income over the time of their career using that private practice vehicle, they are the Superbike, and they're quite they have quite a lot of awareness that they're not going to be able to really sell it for much at the end of it because it completely relies on them. Now, your other option is you could create the bus, the van, the vehicle that leverages through the people and through the systems. So if that's the case, then there are a few things, if you're going to go the bus versus the Superbike, that you need to keep in mind. Now, we, of course, here at the Hive, we teach this best practice system. And when you get all of that right, you look at these value drivers. You got not reliant on the owner, there's quality clients, it's innovative, you get the top 20% of the financials. Again, you've got to have metrics to understand that. You've got a great team, great systems, and you do have some kind of succession planning for when the principal either stops working or exits the business itself. Now, the biggest value driver, though, is that it is not reliant on the owner and that you get leverage through great systems. So if there's one thing that I could suggest that you do if you want to actually improve that part of the value equation, is to just look at your whole patient journey through attract, convert, treat, delight, refer, and ask these questions. Where are the gaps in the processes? Where are we already nailing it? And then do a bit of an analysis of asking these three questions. If we were to improve this practice across that whole client journey, where could we improve the treatment of and the relationship with our patients? Where could we improve the performance of and the relationship with our team? And where could we tweak things so that they had a positive impact on the scoreboard? And in the webinar, I'll go a lot more into that. But quality clients, quality pricing, committed team, financial benchmarks, top 20%. And of course, by the way, if you haven't used our scoreboard, or if you're not using and actually analyzing the numbers in the back end of, say, you've got Clinico or Data Player or whatever that it happens to be in your practice, you have to have this before you can even think about selling, because a potential buyer won't be able to get their head around what's actually happening in the practice. So be really interested to have a discussion with any of you guys about where you could tweak this if you're trying to create a sale ready practice. And as I say, if you're watching this before the 20th of August, then and you do want to go deeper into this and use some of those templates which will help you calculate A, what your practice might be worth now if you had to sell it, and B, what you need to do to actually pull those value driver levers, then please register and we'll see you on that webinar on the 20th. So good luck with that, guys, and I will see you again next week.